Okay, thank you for joining me here in this panel. So just maybe to generalize why or how we have decided on the participants of this panel, we wanted to have different stakeholders or different views for the same matter. So the matter, light pollution, of course, we have discussed it throughout the day. And here we have two city representatives, so from the city of Tallinn and city of Helsinki. We have a lighting designer. We have an industry representative, as in the form of manufacturer. And then we have integrator representative here as well. So I think we have covered quite a reasonable scope here that we can have a good mix of perspectives. I want this discussion to be spontaneous. So I didn't ask anyone of you to prepare something specific. And I want to really start from from the foundations. And my first question would be how, in your everyday work, you define the concept of light pollution. Do you use the astronomer's view? Do you use the economic view? Or which is the view that you use in your everyday work? And maybe, Johan, you can open.
Yes, firstly, I would ask for a mic because I didn't...
Oh, yes, sorry. Then when we are dealing with miking up Johan, maybe Marjut, you can share the experience or the perception of the city of Helsinki.
As I'm an architect, so it's with architect's eyes, and I also need data. I appreciate much research, and this combination is my point of view. The cityscape, the landscape, architecture, research.
So in terms of light pollution, you see this as, maybe you can elaborate how light pollution fits to the architecture.
Well, in my everyday life, I have smaller or larger projects that I kind of I participate in. And we have, as you know, we have this report on obtrusive light, and that's kind of a basis for me. It was kind of easy task to begin in this kind of position 2 years ago after Juhani, because they have done excellent work. I have got everything completed to begin with how to avoid light pollution, how to go on with the urban lighting development and everything. So I have some research data already, but we need more. And as I said, I'm an architect, so I try to combine these knowledges in my everyday tasks.
Thank you. Johan, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm up here first time, so nobody that you haven't seen me probably yet. I joined Tallinn City a few months ago, so I'm just starting to get some hints what to do. But like Jari said, lighting can't be sustainable in his presentation. So I believe that we should take into consideration and work closely together with research facilities, especially universities, and the key is in collaboration of the expertise. So I am not a lighting scientist, but I would like to take in consideration what they have found to make it more sustainable, and also on the other side, lighting designers. So making good solutions and less polluting solutions is a matter of collaboration of different expertise. That's what should be done. So listen to more professionals is maybe the key, and also direct your own work in a matter, because if we take into consideration the same logic as to pick, not fights, but to pick lights, with project-making companies, engineers, to, I think, a good initial task is the first thing that you should put up there. Second thing is you should make sure the other part realizes what it means. So a long meeting with a project partner is very important, and it benefits the side of the public and side of the private. The private knows what they have to do, and the public knows what they want to get. And when they're on the same page, then I guess that's where the magic happens.
Okay, so maybe just to reflect, the cities mainly rely on good reports, good input materials, individual research, and also good collaboration with experts in their field.
Yes, so everybody understands what's their part, and when they play the part perfectly, then everything fits together like a good puzzle.
Thanks. So now I'm addressing the same question to Jari. So you as a designer, how do you use the term light pollution? Is bad design for you, or bad lighting design for you also light pollution?
That's a really nice question. I think traditionally we've been quite afraid to use the word light pollution, because sometimes as a lighting designer, obviously you're working with light and you hear someone call your work light pollution, so you need to be a bit careful about it. But I think in general it is a collaborative effort, so a lighting designer's kind of function in a project is to stand somewhere in between all the stakeholders and to understand what they want. So maybe I'm simplifying things again, but if the stakeholder says that light pollution is not an issue, then maybe it's not an issue for the designer either. But having said that, it's still, to me personally, it's about how do you define the lighting experience. And when you start looking at it from that perspective, you already intuitively look at things like glare and light pollution. So you already are solving that problem if the stakeholder, even if the stakeholder is not saying that you need to solve the problem. So I don't know, answer is it's a collaborative process for sure.
Mm-hmm. So moving on with manufacturers, Robert, I reckon for a manufacturer you need to have more maybe engineering related approach, or is it still a broader philosophical question?
I think it's a broader philosophical question, but of course I think as a manufacturer you'll have certain technical requirements that you have to fulfill in terms of norms, standards, but at the end of the day it's no more, no less than a tool. We provide a tool. In that sense, it's a collaborative. How that tool gets used, like anything in the world, it can be used for good or bad. So I think what interests me a little bit in all of this is we talk about light pollution, how these things get used in projects. We're probably at the point now we need to understand the opposite. That's, I think, what I find interesting out of today is our perception of darkness. We have an awful lot of information around the perception of light, and I think it's good because at the end of the day, the stakeholders are you and I in terms of the living space. We probably need some darkness festivals, I think, because it'll also help us in terms of developing better tools. Comes back a little bit to what you were saying. It's collaborative. We need to know what's the future. It's going to be less is more. It's obvious.
Yes, thank you. As an integrator, do you need to have form your individual opinion or attitude towards light pollution, or is it just a given what the contractor or the partners provide you?
What is my opinion, what I want to say is it's from the street lighting side. We need maybe more to teach or educate the electrical designers. Then it's probably we get even more or less lighting pollution in our streets.
Okay. My next question, actually, thank you that you raised this topic, is what do you think would be the best practice on how to educate people on lighting pollution? Maybe we can start from you.
Definitely, this kind of lighting seminar is one is the good thing to do.
What would be your opinion?
I think what I touched on a little bit before, I think we need to educate people now on this new, perhaps this new language of darkness. What is dark? I think also what's important in all of that is urban environments. I don't know in Lucia if there's a holistic approach in terms of urban design, because it's lighting is often seen as the band-aid. It's often, we've seen in the past, it's been an afterthought. It's a bit like the orphan child. Oh, how are we going to solve this? Oh, we'll solve it with lighting. And somehow it needs to be an integrative approach. It needs to be landscape architects. It needs to be architects, because even lighting in terms of the urban space, it will create shadows. So how are those shadows perceived? And I think we need to understand better darkness, shadows, nuances. We talk about ambient lighting. Maybe we need to talk about ambient darkness. I don't know. But I think somewhere the answer lies in the middle.
Yeah, thank you. The concept of really like shifting the view also towards darkness, I think this is a fascinating concept.
Yeah, and I think in terms of evolution, light had a certain type of function, and I think we've evolved, or we still are evolving, and now maybe it's darkness also has a function. There's a biological need for dark.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Jari, you as a designer, you work mainly with maybe the top of the food chain. Who is the developer? Who is the buyer, so to say? How do you educate them? How do you tell them that what you want isn't an elegant design, isn't sustainable, isn't what you really want?
I love your questions. In any way you can, but maybe if I try to answer the question in a bit different way, I think educating about lighting should be done in layers, because yes, we work with the end client essentially. Sometimes we don't really know in a cityscape who is the end client. We know who pays the bills, but is it the end client? Probably not. But still we need to have a layered approach to it, so we can teach other professionals like we are doing here today, but then we need to go towards the grassroots level. So if in a perfect world, we'd be teaching this in kindergarten, saying this is bad lighting, this is good lighting, or at least starting the dialogue and the language of light to be more generalized and more understandable. Because even here today, for us professionals, it's very easy to understand numbers. Well, I'll be honest, it's not easy to understand numbers every time. Sometimes I need to scratch my head, what does 50 lux on a surface really mean? It's not something tangible. So maybe we need to create a language that then addresses the layman, the non-professionals, and start talking about that. I'll elaborate slightly on that. In the way we communicate our projects or our concepts or our ideas, we actually use quite a lot of emotional language, and I think the other designers in the room can testify to this, because we're using terminology like mood, atmosphere, warm, cold. They're not technical terms, and people perceive them in different ways, but it's still a much more easier approach than to talk just simply about regulations or standards. Obviously they come at some point, but on that grassroots level, every time you need to educate the client to what lighting is all about.
Thank you. Moving on with cities, how do you educate the citizens, like
the residents?
Yes, the residents.
Yeah. I believe that seeing is learning. So I think the meeting people in our dark urban spaces can give us all more than just talking or showing some nice pictures. And I believe that we in Helsinki, we haven't met the residents enough for now, but we try to. There are so many projects going on, hundreds in a year, so it's not possible to meet everybody in every project, but in the biggest projects we try to figure out how to communicate and collaborate more and in a better way. And I think, and I have seen that the meeting and the walking around together in our spaces and dark spaces, or the kind of spaces needing some improvement, that is something we can learn. We all can learn, and the residents can realize what are the kind of basic objectives the city of Helsinki has. And something more about these future clients, I believe that we should be more conscious of the ideas of children and young people. And in Helsinki we have several projects that have the aim to meet these young citizens and to hear really their ideas and hopes for the dark spaces or the urban spaces they use every day.
What is the like the general plan or idea of Tallinn to tell citizens that bright light is not the best light?
Well, about lighting, there's one common thing that happens. Nobody notices when the lighting is done good, when it whispers on the wall, when it lights just the right spot. People take this for granted. Everybody notices when the light is bad, and then hence the complaints later. I think it's a matter of engagement, asking people. So if somebody is wounded, you ask, where does it hurt? But you ask the person, not the person next to him, where does it hurt on his body, you know. So we should ask the people, like this survey does at the moment that we conducted, what is disturbing them? Where are the points where we can come and help you to make something happen, to make something better? And also, the form of light festivals is part of engagement. So we don't create Disney parks as light festivals go. We do the installations so they would maybe embrace darkness, or at least don't put more glare up there. Maybe a light festival about darkness. Maybe encourage people to visit astronomy festivals, to have astronomy festivals, to maybe do blackouts in some parts of the city, to really bring it down to the grassroots and the people and ask them, where does it hurt in that way. So I think engagement is highly important.
Yes, thank you. Since the topic of lighting is a technical topic, so I want to also address a technical question. Where do you see the biggest potential of technology, of future technology that can help the city of Tallinn? Is it collecting feedback from citizens, measurements, anything else?
Thank you for the question. I have prepared for that. I think the answer relies on the possibilities of digital society. We should digitalize more of it. I don't mean only the control system of lighting, the dimming, the obvious technical solutions that we're all using, mostly indoors, but more and more outdoors. I am talking about maintenance. I'm talking about how do you perceive a lifespan of a lighting installation. Do you know when you should update it? Maybe it's not good to install lights that go up for 100,000 hours, that are there for 20 years in that sake. Maybe we should think of the speed of technological advancement in our world. Maybe the amortization period of a light installation is 10 years, maybe 5 years even. Well, this is a bit utopic, but still. We don't know what the future brings, and maybe the future brings better solutions. So we must be ready to adapt and improve on these bases. But firstly, we need to get to the digitalization of lighting, the digitalization of maintenance process, and all of it. And then, like the Aalto University presentation said, that like he said, there's not enough data. So where does the data come from? It comes basically from these digital solutions, so then we can make conclusions and we can further research and then bounce it back and forth until we get better. So let's leave some room for technological advancement, but still move to that direction is maybe the goal I want to say, and correct maintenance and updatability, let's say.
Thank you. Same question to Helsinki. Where is the potential of technology?
In digital twins, I believe that Helsinki is going to improve everything with the development of digital twins. And I've been involved in one kind of test that we are combining urban lighting with nature, like trees and green plants and everything in the cities. But it's a kind of, I don't know where we actually coming or what kind of results we are getting in the end, but there are several tests going on and several ways to try to combine everything in one digital twin, that we in the future we could see the needs of improvements in urban spaces, in architecture, in transportation planning, in lighting, everything. So that's why that's what I kind of put my money on.
It's nice to see that we have a harmonized agreement between Tallinn and Helsinki, that building a digital framework which can be used to build actual applications on is the way that the future will look like.
That's the future.
The
for sure.
technological breach instead of the physical breach is already there.
From the designer's perspective, what is the next big step after projections?
I was about to say digital twins, just because I love them myself. I think they are still in very baby steps at this point, not utilized in really any shape or form. But I'll divert from that and try to figure out another answer. But I think maybe something that is more easily communicated to the general public would be a focus on health. So when we do our design work, regardless of what discipline it's doing, is I think health of human beings is the main focus. Health of nature, of course, too. And just at that kind of topic, I could bring out listening to, for instance, highly sensitive people. For when you work in office environments, you will always have highly sensitive people who are really, really sensitive to light flickering, for instance. So if you listen to those people, you automatically will get high quality conditions, whether it's lighting, sound, or ventilation. So the focus needs to go there. And some of the economists are also saying that we are moving into a health economy. And we can see that already, partly starting. Everyone wants to measure themselves. They want to have their meters on, and they kind of, that's becoming like a new religion to many people. And fine, it's good. But it probably will step up to other things also. And it will need technology to enable it. So I think that's a very crucial thing to focus on.
Yes, thank you for the insight. From the manufacturer's perspective.
Big question. I think that, digitalization, I think you can't avoid it. We're headed in that direction. I think it's how you use it and how it gets used. Probably the benefit in citizen engagement. I think to be honest, we're in a difficult period. We talk about children. We talk also about an aging demographic. And older people in terms of perception of light is also an issue. And the interesting thing is, we could see in Germany there was citizen engagement when it came to the energy crisis, people wanting to switch lights off, and why aren't they switching the lights off? But all analog, calling up and doing it. So I see in the future demographic change, the digitalization, interconnectedness, citizen engagement, apps. People will demand more in terms of reacting with the environment, definitely. And I think the other major influence has been, of course, COVID. I think how cities and urban environments get used. There's a lot of discussion around office space. What do we do with that? Digitalization. So I think whatever you do has to be future-proof, because we have no idea in the sense of what 10 years or in 20 years the urban space is going to be looking like. We might be spending 50 to 60, 70% of it in home office for some reason, not in the city. I don't know.
That's great insight.
Yeah.
From the perspective of the integrator.
Anyway, one part is anyway this digitalization, but we should start. We talk a couple of presentations today, a couple of time about standards, and there wasn't so much mention about lighting pollution at all. So maybe we should start to change the standard as well and put more in different kind requirements for that.
Thank you. Now I maybe want to add a bit of intrigue as well, so it's late in the evening already. So let's take that providing biological diversity and health is a given. If you were to choose between economics and aesthetics, which one would it be and why? So I reckon for the integrator it's mainly economics, and aesthetics is somewhere else. No?
It's a 50-50.
Political answer. For the manufacturer.
I think that's a trick question. I don't think you should choose. I think it depends on how you define economy and economical. I think it's not a win-win if you choose one or the other. It's
if you look at the market pull, is it pull for more aesthetical devices or more maybe economically efficient devices?
I think it's part of this collaboration, this education. I think we had a discussion about this last night about price and this pull, and there's this pull that you can see it's happening at the moment with this subject called sustainability. We're in transformation. Everything has to change. We can't keep going the way that we're going. So if you go economical, if you say it's going to cost. I can't answer the question. It's a bit, it's a difficult one.
Yes, that's.
But I don't think there should be a compromise.
Okay, that's a very good statement.
Yeah.
From the designer's perspective, I think I know the answer, but
let's see. Let's see.
I think aesthetics is much more important than the economic side, because aesthetics will have benefits that will have greater economical benefits.
Personally, I feel that you can't separate the two, because as a designer, especially if you're designing an experience, you need to be psychological about it. And part of my job is to, in lack of a better word, is to manipulate the client. So you need to build up first the experience. What are we doing in the project? And from there you build up the budget or economical psychology. Okay, if you want it higher up, you will get more layers to the concept. You go downwards, something lacks maybe, and then you get to the lower price level, but you still get an experience. So it's everyday life for a designer to understand the economics, but also to understand how to create an experience. So they're not really separated. I think it's a generalization and a bit of a cliche to say that designers only care about the aesthetics. If they would do that, they would probably not have a lot of work, to be very honest. So,
thank you. Next, I'm really looking forward to where these cities stand on this. So what's the standpoint of Helsinki?
Well, in city scale, there is not the one without the other. And I wouldn't have my kind of position if I thought this could be separated. City residents need the aesthetics, and we have a certain sum of euros, and I know it every day, and that's kind of challenging. I like it. It's a combination, good combination. To know that you have some limits, and anyway you have to create. You have to have this big scale ideas how to create aesthetic atmosphere and spaces and safety and everything. So I like the challenge.
As I told previously that I have been with the city for a short period so far. Previously, last 5 years of my working experience, I was working as a lighting engineer and a lighting designer. We had a big emphasis in the company about energy saving, foremost. And also the lighting design aspect was what I was preaching mainly there. And you can have both, is my answer today. With wise planning, good engineers on board, good designers, smart customer or the company or association is ordering the project. When you make precise calculations of the estimate cost, so it comes down to both. It's like first is the preliminary cost of what you're gonna invest. Second of all is the upkeep. Third of all is how much would the previous lighting installation cost you anyway, and then you can make efficiency calculations to see if it is wise to make this investment. So you have to take in consideration the economical part of it, cost effectiveness, the energy sustainability, and the aesthetics. So the principle less is more goes there as well. So you can have a really aesthetic lighting installation by creating an efficient and sustainable lighting solution. It doesn't have to, maybe you should think investing in better optics to cover more surface area might be a better option than to choose cheap luminaires and to put 3 of these there. So you need to actually economically calculate, design this, and then firstly you have to have the concept. So yes, Jari would like to comment on it.
Yeah, just taking it into a bit of a different direction. I also feel that the designer needs to use his or her experience to educate the client also about the economics, because sometimes you go into a project and you ask for a budget, they give you a budget and you say, don't do anything. It doesn't make sense to spend that little money on something. I know this sounds a bit harsh, but I'll give you an example. Without naming anyone, in a retail project, we were asked to come in as the lighting designers. They accepted our fees, not a problem. And then we started discussing about the implementation. What is the budget for the implementation? And this was a huge project. And I asked them, well, what is the budget, the general lighting budget? They said 20,000 euros. And I said, okay, that's fine. We can do it for 20,000, but you will end up with jailhouse lighting, which means that you have 5 projectors and their glare. That's what you will get for 20,000 euros. And then I started to do my other side of my work, which is understanding what things cost. And I told them, you need to add a 0 into the budget. And you can imagine, client being very happy with that. So it was a 3-month process to tell them, to show them similar projects with a similar budget. And I had to almost sign a contract in blood to say that yes, that includes everything. It's the design, it's the product, it's the installation and everything. And then they ask for, okay, we have an idea we want to use, you probably guessed the project already, but we want to use LED screens. Jari, can you help us? Should we use prints on the walls, huge prints? Should we use LED screens, or should we do something else? And then I told them, yes, give us 2 days to think about this, and we come up with a solution for you. We came up with a solution that cost a lot more than 200,000 euros. And we were like, okay, this is going to be a 6-month process to try to prove this. What happened was the client calls me, yes, we have a board meeting next Friday and we'll look into this. And next Friday he gives me a call, yes, it's fine, let's go. And the psychology there was that it came from a different position in their budget. It wasn't coming anymore from like an electrical budget. It was coming from marketing. So you need to sometimes tap into different things to get different things done. On a city level, that's obviously a bit different, but when you have private customers, it might happen.
So picking fights is healthy.
Yeah,
that's it.
Thank you for these great examples. So I'm going to start summing up our panel discussion, although I'm having a great time here. The last thing I'm going to ask for you to provide is building on the Lucy experience about how cities share information with cities. I ask each one of you to share some piece of advice, practical guidelines, or anything else that you can possibly share using this platform that you have right now. So this is how can we tackle the problem of light pollution from your perspective or experience? What's the piece of advice?
Good planning, good project partners, really talking everything through, not fight each other, but see how we can fight together with a common enemy.
Great.
I was thinking something I have learned during these Lucy meetings, and it was probably last time in Jyväskylä I met a kind of a colleague from Germany, and I hadn't thought about how to, as I am an architect, so I like maps and drawings and things. So how they had developed a name for these areas without light or very small amount of light, and they were called light-sensitive areas. I fell in love with that idea, and I've been developing that in my mind, and I think it's going to be visible in Helsinki soon in our plans. And that means that we must collaborate and we must communicate with the citizens and with each other. So, yeah, that's my kind of idea today.
Thank you. Jari, what would be your piece of advice to fellow designers? Or
we need more information. Collaboration is obviously a key again, but we need to have more information to tackle the right things. Now we already know, like we were talking all here, it's 4 main things we need to tackle, that's fine. But then there are other things within our profession we need to understand. And I'm calling for more research. And when I say research, it obviously needs to be divided again into layers. So you have the technical side of things, the manufacturers developing products, focusing on the really techie things. But then there is the 2 more missing things within lighting research, which is research on perception of lighting and research on psychology of lighting. And without those elements, we might not necessarily be talking the right language to people, and we might not be tackling every correct issue. But let's start with collaborating and researching on those topics.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, totally agree. I think it starts with collaboration, and I think it also, the next one is challenging separating the want from the need, and also at the end of the day, also saying no, it makes no sense, and to stand up and fight the fight, because it just makes no sense, and you might lose.
Thanks. Tanel?
I'm thinking very good is Tallinn is doing this questionnaire for the like citizen of the people to collect this kind of information for each part of the Tallinn lake. So I ask everybody to take this part of this questionnaire, and then we get like more information what's really going on in our cities.
Yes, thank you. And thank, first of all the panelists. Thank you for the audience for listening in. So I will not keep you here, so you can you can move off the stage. Thank you. And I will take a few more minutes to formally summarize what we have discussed here, and also to summarize our seminar today. So maybe to sum up the more important findings or points of discussions that we had is that we need more data, and the data needs to be used in a way which is accessible to not only people but also to different technological applications. So this was, for me, was one of the maybe more guidelines on where the development towards lighting will move when we are talking street lighting. Another thing which was very interesting for me is that all the stakeholders that were on stage, they completely agreed that economics and the aesthetics cannot be viewed separately, because they are so intertangled with each other that they are almost inseparable, which is actually a very promising notion that we don't have any solution which will form one of the extremes. So these would be my basically key takeaways from our discussion. And before I ask you to give one last final applause, I want you to hold it, because this applause is for each one of you, because you have achieved a great big deal today, because you have learned or become more aware of lighting pollution, how lighting pollution is defined, how it is measured, why it is important to measure it, how we can regulate it, why is the design of lighting important, which are the organizations that combine cities to that are tackling these problems together, how the manufacturers tackle these problems. These are just a few parts that you have learned today. So this is the last applause to you. Thank you. You have been great, and I now officially announce that our seminar has come to an end.